Now that Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, has been running in the theaters for a while, the Mad Max franchise has been the major talk of town. Hollywood should have really taken lessons from George Miller on how to stay relevant within a universe that has been fueled by his brain for the past 40 years. But the release of Furiosa has allowed the Mad Max franchise to progress in plenty of exciting directions, all of which are completely dependent on Miller's creative vision. When Mad Max Fury Road served as the fourth movie in the franchise and premiered 30 years after Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, it completely revamped the Mad Max lore and was surprisingly quick to garner almost unanimously positive reviews from both viewers and critics. I mean, can you imagine that a film that has spent 3 whole decades in development hell took the industry by storm by landing on 10 nominations at the 88 Academy Awards and further securing its place as one of the greatest action movies ever made, with Furiosa making a comeback as the first Mad Max prequel almost 10 years after the main film's release? Most viewers and critics are equally impressed. Naturally, this has managed to pave the way for the addition of more films within the franchise. While there haven't been any official announcements about the future of Mad Max movies, George Miller has hinted at wanting to take the franchise's post-apocalyptic drama in an exciting new direction. So without wasting another moment, let's discuss every upcoming project that is in the works within the Mad Max franchise. But before we go into explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means an awful lot. Thank you, and let's begin. George Miller wrote up a whole novella while drawing up the scripts for Mad Max Fury Road. According to George Miller, in order to line up the iconic story of Fury Road, they had to figure out everything that they wanted to portray onto the screen. This was not just about the origin story of every character, but it was the same case for every vehicle and every prop. Apparently, even before they could bring Fury Road to life, they wrote down the story of Furiosa while she was just 15 or 16 years into her life, which is probably more than a decade before the events of Fury Road. That is how they went on to write an elaborate story on Max 2, and later both ended up being a screenplay and a novella. While they did not exactly write it down like a Bible, it was simply done so the crew and the actors had a better understanding of the core concept of the main reboot. So once Miller saw how the world went batshit crazy about Fury Road, he figured that the next addition to the Mad Max franchise should indeed come from the same script and novella he had written for Fury Road, which was in development for almost 30 years. He believed that all the backstories and the source material he had created had a rich tale to present. After Fury Road's success, he did not want to create something repetitive or what he had previously done, but wanted his new film to be uniquely familiar, and that is exactly what led to Furiosa. So if I had to guess, George Miller first came up with the idea for Fury Road in the mid-90s, and given how long the film took to get made, instead of a traditional script, he created a series of detailed storyboards as he wanted the film to be visually captivating, and going forward, that's what they stuck with. But even then, it took over 19 years from these detailed storyboards until Fury Road was finally released. There were a couple of false starts along the way, of course, one in the early 2000s with Mel Gibson rumored to take back his domain as the lead, and another attempt around 2009 to 2010 that again got delayed. Then they finally shot it in 2012, and ultimately, Fury Road was released in 2015. As the film had such a prolonged gestation period, it allowed Miller to just stop and think through every detail in order to give each character a rich backstory. In fact, they were very close to lining up Furiosa during the same time Fury Road was about to hit the screens, but Furiosa was supposed to be an anime, and the production company was already actively working on it. Eventually, they realized that Fury Road was just taking way too much time to go into production, and with George Miller not being able to dedicate much of his attention to this anime project, they had to postpone the whole thing. So as time passed, it simply did not end up happening. But you have to keep one prominent detail in mind. These are the stories that George Miller had been itching to share for a very long time. And with the success of Fury Road, he had really earned our trust. I mean, even if I thought that this dude would never be able to revive the franchise, and not just me, even the hardcore Mad Max cultists believed that without Mel Gibson, the Mad Max saga would never work. And to top that off, we had all those rumors about production troubles and conflicts among the two main leads. Some early test screenings also failed to go smoothly, but then the movie surprised everyone with its release, as it was even nominated for Best Picture and made it onto numerous Best of the Decade and Best of the Year lists. So if you're looking for some good movies that are fueled by creativity rather than corporate decisions, often overly influenced by marketing departments, out-of-touch executives, or focus groups. Miller is surely your man. The franchise is undoubtedly being driven by a visionary with wild, crazy ideas, and that is exactly what we get to see in his films. So if you have watched Furiosa, just know that it is just one of the stories that George Miller got passionate about almost 15 years ago and has been working hard to bring to life ever since.
Max, is that you? Where were you?
George Miller might make another hardcore comeback with a new Mad Max sequel. Not very long after the premiere of Mad Max Fury Road, George Miller revealed he had written the screenplay for a sequel called Mad Max The Wasteland. This movie was apparently planned to pick up right where Fury Road left off, with Tom Hardy returning as Max Rockatansky. However, Miller later decided to work on 3,000 Years of Longing instead. He only came back to the Mad Max series later to make the prequel of Fury Road, which we now know as Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Later, when he was asked about the updates on Mad Max The Wasteland, he had revealed how it did not fully evolve as of yet. This basically gives us an assurance of the film's development that while Miller surely has a rough idea about how he wants to helm the storyline of Mad Max in the future, there still seems to be many key aspects of the lore that demands more refinement before it can go into production in order to materialize into a whole film. So even if there are chances for this new sequel to happen, the sheer lack of updates only suggests that with Furiosa being released, the franchise could go in a completely different direction if it wanted to. Mad Max Fury Road is rumored to get yet another prequel. While working on the fourth film in the series, George Miller and his co-writer Nico Lathoris had so much time to brainstorm the storylines that they wrote a whole detailed piece that covers Max Rockatansky's life in the desert a year before the events that led to Mad Max Fury Road. This story explains how Max became the tough, stoic man we saw in Fury Road. So Miller hopes to turn this piece into another prequel movie, which could indeed be the next installment in the Mad Max series. However, since Furiosa is also a prequel, don't you think it would be rather unusual for Miller to follow it up with yet another prequel of Fury Road? But again, given how George Miller has effectively managed to add a good few layers to the franchise's overarching storyline by intricately exploring Furiosa's origin story, it is really not that difficult to trust his vision for the franchise. Even then, one thing to note is that the newest prequel film also had post-credit scenes that featured the bird bobblehead that rested in Nux's car before he destroyed it in the sandstorm. This only gives one hint that this prequel might indeed be Nux's rodeo. Since he dies by the end of Fury Road, Furiosa's post-credit scene is probably all the hint we need to figure out that this new prequel film or a show might go deeper into Nux's past and walk us through his origin story. Considering that George Miller has even thought through the backstory of the Doof Warrior, it would not exactly be very surprising if he has a detailed narrative planned for our favorite war boy Nux as well. George Miller seems to be consciously optimistic about the future of the Mad Max franchise. So sometime along the line, George Miller had revealed that he had already thought about the events that would follow after Furiosa ascended to the top of the Citadel in Mad Max Fury Road. However, he still has not managed to fully map out these stories because according to him, the Mad Max franchise has a long way to go and many more stories to tell. Plus, I specifically remember him mentioning that in case Furiosa does as well as he plans, Miller would be more than happy to move forward with his ideas toward the whole franchise. This is also when he mentioned The Wasteland for the first time and assured how it might live to see the light of the day in case Furiosa gained traction. Plus, he also mentioned that Tom Hardy could return to the film only if the planets align, whatever that means. Now, the main twist comes with how previously Mad Max The Wasteland was set to be a direct sequel to Fury Road, but it seems like that title is currently being used for a potential prequel that will map out Max's journey from a year before Fury Road. So everything for now is a big-ass question mark because if we were to take Miller's plans and ideas into consideration, they suggest how there are many possible directions for the Mad Max franchise to progress forward. However, with Furiosa's rather underwhelming box office run, the future of the franchise is looking rather bleak. Is there even a future for the Mad Max franchise? Even though Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, has managed to land within the good books of the critics and even holds a solid 90% score on Rotten Tomatoes, the film has not exactly made a significant impact at the box office. Over its 4-day Memorial Day weekend opening, Furiosa has only brought in $32 million domestically, while bagging around $36.5 million overseas. According to the most recent estimates that I could find, the film might even struggle to reach a neat $90 million domestically, which in turn could be a really bad sign for the future of the Mad Max franchise. Generally, if you follow the rule of thumb, a Hollywood film needs to earn at least 2.5 times more than its production budget in order to be considered as profitable. Now, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, has an existing budget of $168 million, and in that order, the film would need to gross around $420 million globally to become a full hit. Given that Mad Max Fury Road had a better opening weekend with $45.3 million, but only managed to reach up to $379.4 million worldwide after its theatrical run, Furiosa surely has a tough road ahead to be profitable. So this significantly lowers the chances of the Mad Max franchise continuing with more sequels, prequels, or spin-offs anytime soon. But there is one key point we should all keep in mind: that George Miller is a passionate man who simply goes out of his way to finance his films locally as much as it is possible for him. Of course, there is a good amount of political influence involved, especially with the government incentives and all. All of this helped finance Furiosa while boosting local economies, which is why he never relies too heavily upon Warner Brothers Studios. This does not mean that Miller does not have a good steady relationship with the studio as compared to the complete dysfunctional state he was in while making Fury Road, so that is also an added bonus. Having said all of that, while the production of the Wasteland did heavily depend upon the success of Furiosa, it does not necessarily mean it has to be directed by George Miller, because as rumor has it, there might be a potential takeover within the franchise sometime soon. Plus, Miller is around 80 years, and I am guessing he simply does not have another 30 years or even 10 years to torment himself with all these new projects being stuck in developmental hell. But as they say in life, anything is possible. What do you guys think? I mean, a film that fully focuses on Max Rockatansky is surely something we could all rave behind, right? Well, let us know your thoughts in the comment box below. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.